we're all pulled to the latest hot topic, right? And we know that there are so many people in need around the world. And what we always want to make sure that we keep in mind is that sometimes the people who need the most help also are the ones who don't get the media attention. And so that's why I think it's so important that we share the story of what we experienced in Laredo, and we have our volunteers share their experiences. So with that, I'd like to pass it over to the person that really made this all happen, Sister Maureen Freeman, who's going to talk a little bit about the beginning of the trip, how this formed, how it came to be. Sister, turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alyssa. It's a fairly simple answer of how this all got started. It's because of the generosity of the people right here in St. Louis. It started back in April when 3 of us sisters of St. Joseph were headed down to El Paso to work at Annunciation House. Annunciation House was just opening after about a year of being closed because of COVID. And so we put a call out, we thought, to just our sisters and associates for supplies, clothing, medicine, etc., to help get the Annunciation House open again. What happened, to our amazement, was that somehow it snowballed. And that is thanks to the brother of 2 of our sisters. Sister Sandy and Linda's brother David mentioned it at his parish and shared it with other people. And before we knew it, there were all kinds of parishes, synagogues, schools, choral groups, choirs, book clubs, bringing things to our mother house. We were amazed and delighted. The only problem was we couldn't fit everything that had been donated into our white van to go to El Paso. So thanks to Marie Kenyon, we were able to store a lot of these supplies at the Regali Center. So as soon as we got back from El Paso, we said, now how are we going to get the rest of these supplies down there? Or is there another center somewhere on the border that also needs help? Well, it happened that I had a friend, Sister Anita, who is a Dominican sister from Springfield, Illinois, who happened at that very moment to be volunteering at La Frontera in Laredo. I called her and I said, Anita, do you think they could use these supplies? And I named what we had. And she said, oh, Mo, they could use anything. They're desperate for help. So I called Linda, Sister Linda Straub, and said, wouldn't you like to take a ride down to Laredo with me? And we went, we filled the van. This time, since there were only 2 of us, we could put a lot more supplies in the van. And down we went to Laredo. We thought we'd only be there to unload the van and head back to St. Louis, but that didn't happen. We unloaded what we had brought. We saw that there were still empty things needed on the shelves, or the shelves, I should say, were empty in spots. And so we took some of the funds that had been given to us and went out and bought shoes and bought some other things at Sam's Club. And then the following day headed back to St. Louis. The only problem was part of our hearts had stayed in Laredo. We were hooked. And so when we got back to St. Louis, Linda and I kept thinking, we've got to do something. We promised Becky we'd come back and help. And so we called Marie Kenyon, who's always there and had helped us with the original organization, and said, Marie, we need to do something for the Catholic Charities group in Laredo. So she called Alyssa from the Jewish Community Relations Council. And then she called Meredith from the St. Francis Center. And the five of us came up with this idea that we could raise enough funds in a couple of weeks to send 4 teams of at least 5 people each down to Laredo to help at La Frontera for at least a week each. And believe it or not, within almost a 4-week period, we raised all the money we needed. And we did send 4 teams down. And those volunteers will have a chance a little later to share with you some of their experiences. But we're not done yet. That was our first project. You will hear more from Meredith about other ways that we can help our immigrant brothers and sisters right here in St. Louis. We will be doing more as long as the generosity of the people of God here in St. Louis continues. We will take that message of love to the border. Thank you.
Absolutely beautiful, sister. Thank you so much for that background, for sharing that with us, and for a little message of hope and inspiration for the future. So something you said that's absolutely correct is that we could not have done this without the generosity of our donors. So I'd like to turn it over now to Marie Kenyon, who I'm sure all of you know, to talk a little bit about where those funds went. Marie?
Thanks so much. So to begin with, Bishop, greetings from Archbishop Brzezinski. He wishes he could be on the call this evening, but he had something else. For all of you on the Zoom call, our Archbishop and Bishop Tomeo are good friends. And so when we told him we were thinking about doing this pilgrimage to his diocese, Archbishop was thrilled. Sister Maureen is exactly right. You can have great intentions, but if you don't have any money, then good luck to you. And the fundraising was amazing. In less than a month, we were able to raise $37,345 for this journey. We need to thank our major donors, Catholic Charities of St. Louis, the Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet, the Marillac Mission Fund, and the Incarnate Word Foundation, and Doctors Kevin and Susie Jernigan. But we also got donations of from $5 to whatever from 70 other people. All wish, all wanting to help and help the effort. And that was just the cash donations. In addition, we raised, well, you heard from Sister, the original ask was for supplies for El Paso, and we filled a room at the Regali Center with some extra supplies. And then we bought down 20 checked bags of luggage containing supplies that people donated in St. Louis. And then once we got down to Laredo, we spent thousands of dollars for supplies there. Alyssa, do you have that slide? I just want to show you how what we spent your money on. So we purchased that, you name it, folks needed it, we purchased it. We even managed to purchase a washing machine for the shelter. One of the things that I think you might be interested in is, well, why are we spending so much on shoes and shoelaces? Well, when people are picked up by detention, one of the things they do is they take their shoelaces. And so a lot of folks are obviously traveling in tennis shoes, so they came to us with no shoelaces, or the shoes they had been traveling in, they just were worn out. They needed new shoes. You can see we also spent money on belts. They take their belts. But for the Catholics in the group, you will be happy to know that one of the things that was most needed were rosaries, because unfortunately, when they get picked up by detention, they take their rosaries. And so that was one of the other things that we were able to supply. This trip could not have happened without the donors. It just couldn't. You know, the 20 of us who were privileged to go down and make the trip, I mean, it was all well and good for us, but you were with us every step of the way. And we will be so, so grateful to all of you who are willing to donate for people that you'll never know, you'll never meet, but you knew that they were our brothers and sisters in need. The good thing for us is we raised, as I said, $37,345. We spend about $30,000. It cost us about $7,000 a week, including airfare, transportation, lodging, and supplies. And so we have enough left over to go down for one more week. We had 3 people who couldn't come down because of COVID. They had COVID or they were exposed to COVID. So we're going to get with Becky and hopefully we'll be sending one more group down to help out. So again, thank you for your donations. We are so, so grateful.
Thank you so much, Marie. It was absolutely incredible. I have to tell you that every time we went to purchase new supplies, new clothes, new shoes, the clients at the shelter were just, wait, we can have one of these? Wait, no, really? Yeah, yes. And they were just so appreciative. And I wish we could have captured that gratitude to bring it back with us so you all feel that, because it was truly life-changing. So now I'd like to introduce a very, very, very special guest. We have with us tonight Bishop James Tamayo, who is the bishop down in Laredo for the Archdiocese of Laredo. Bishop Tamayo is going to tell us a little bit about the Laredo Diocese and the La Frontera shelter. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, Alyssa. It's so great to be with each one of you. And I echo what everyone previously has been saying. It couldn't be done without your heart, without your treasure, your generous financial gift, and most especially without the soul, without what that means, the dignity, the belief in individuals and their possibilities, and letting them dream and letting them go forth in an opportunity and an environment of respect and of goodwill. La Frontera shelter, and La Frontera means the hospice place, or not hospice in the way we say it, but the place of meeting at the border. The Frontera is the border, and the Diocese of Laredo is located on the border of the United States and Mexico in the state of Texas on our side. Our diocese is 21 years old. I'm the first bishop of that diocese. I've been with our people here for 21 years, and we look like the country of Chile. We're a long, narrow strip of 175 miles along the US-Mexico border. My diocese touches 2 Mexican crossing points, Nuevo Laredo with the city of Laredo, and Piedras Negras, Mexico, with the city of Eagle Pass. This past Sunday, I was in Eagle Pass, visiting our community there and learning about how that situation and passage is happening. Along the border, there are crossings every day. Catholic Charities and Becky Soyoa and her team try to assist as much as we can in those migrants that seek and that can get documentation to enter legally into the United States. Others that have come across without documents that are picked up by Border Patrol or by ICE or by some other law enforcement agency then have to be processed. And many of them will tell you, I'm here because I need assistance. My family has no food. My mother, my husband is in the United States. They haven't seen one another for years. The children don't have educational opportunities. Some are being exploited sexually, into gangs through violence, and threatened their lives. So they're fleeing from many, many causes and reasons. And they reach us, and Border Patrol will apprehend them and process them. And for those that have the opportunity to plead their case and connect with a member in the United States that is a relative or a sponsor for that individual migrant, they come, many of them, to La Frontera shelter to make contact with that relative. And that's where your friends, your people of St. Louis met them and allowed them to find a change of clothes, sleep on a clean bed after months of traveling by land and sleeping on the ground, make an opportunity to start learning a way in which they can start adjusting in this new country. And we let them know who we are. We're people of faith. We're people of goodwill. We welcome them. We respect them. And that's the first time that they start to breathe, that they start to feel safe, that they start to smile and recognize these people truly love us. These people truly will help us. We can trust them. We can sleep safely tonight without fear. That's a blessing that we have found at La Frontera shelter. And as I was preparing for this time with you, I couldn't help but remember a scripture passage where someone who was in great need said to the master when he asked, what do you want me to do for you? That I may see, the individual said, that I may see. You know, when we do have blindness of the eye, of the heart, and the soul, we don't see an individual. We find the faults in those that we see with these eyes. We judge, and sometimes harshly and negatively. But when we ask, Lord, that I may see, and sincerely seek sight, eyes and heart and soul, we see a person. We see a child of God. We see their needs, and we see things that are not different from us, but we see our own story. Haven't I at one time been lost? Haven't I at one time had great needs of support from others in a community, in a family? And when we see, that's the joy that you that have visited La Frontera, or you that gave a contribution to this cause, can be able to know that you have given to a person. You have brought someone a sense of welcome and dignity. And as they leave us on their way, many of them are headed to you. They're going to St. Louis. They're going to California. They're going to Florida. They're going to Houston, to other Chicago, other parts of the United States. And it makes me feel so good that after all the love we've given to them, and after all the assurances we've said that you're welcome, we will help you along the way, that I can now say, I know there's people in St. Louis whose eyes and hearts and soul are open, and that when you arrive there, if you have any need, turn to the church, turn to the synagogue, turn to people that are neighbors and goodwill, and they will help you. And you've done that. And so I thank you so much. Our work continues. Becky Soyoa toward the end of our session today will give you an update on what is happening now. But again, I say thank you. And again, I say it could not be done without you, without your eyes open to finding a person, without your heart open to say, you are my brother, my sister, and I'm here to share with you what I have. And without that soul that allows us to know, no matter the distance, no matter the circumstances, together we are one. And together, somos familia. We are family. God bless each of you.
Somos familia. Thank you so much, Bishop Tamayo. It's truly an honor to be connected again and to hear your words of wisdom that truly touch all of our hearts.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we've heard such wise and moving words so far already. Now we would really like to hear some words from our volunteers. And what we'd like to do, we have an initial question for all of the volunteers who have joined us tonight. But after that, we'd like to open up the questions. So everyone else has a chance to ask the volunteers about the experience, whether it's something specific, whether you have a question about how it impacted them. We encourage you to think about these questions and write them in the chat. And then we will make sure to get to your questions as we go through this Q&A portion of the program. So the first question that I have, the only question I really have before we open it up is, what was the most meaningful part of the trip for you as a volunteer? And I have to say, just to kick off the answers, and then I'd like to pass it along, is that Bishop Tamayo wasn't solely there as a figurehead. He jumped in, he did the work, he interacted with every single person at that shelter. He made sure that everyone was safe and that everyone was comfortable and getting their needs met. And that was truly transformative for me to see. Not only that, but it was incredible interacting with so many people and hearing their incredible stories of strength as they made their way to the United States. So I'd like to pass this along. Let's see, Daniel Madden, you're on my screen next. Would you like to share?
Yeah, can you hear me? Okay. If there's a little bit of a hitch here, it might be because my wife is nearby with her own computer. So if this doesn't work well, let me know. What was most meaningful for me from the border experience was the feeling I had as if I'd been given two reminders. The first reminder was to look and to see more clearly the genuine humanity of the immigrant. When you're there in Laredo, up close and personal with the immigrant, it's easier to see that each is a real, genuine human being. Each expresses genuine human emotion with their voice, with their body language, with the parts of their faces that aren't covered by masks, and with their eyes. I felt reminded not to stereotype them, and definitely not to depersonalize or dehumanize any one of them. At the shelter, I often observed in a crowd of newly arrived immigrants the same sorts of behaviors observable in any crowd. There's always some who are too impatient and too aggressive, too self-centered, could be observed in the immigrants at La Frontera shelter. but the vast majority I met were patient, tolerant, caring of friends or family, and often grateful for any kindness. They displayed understandably human reactions and emotions toward the experience of leaving most everything behind and heading north. The second reminder that I perceived was continue to try to be kind, to be generous, to share our resources. And I would include among our resources relationship, friendship. I felt encouraged to offer at least a little bit of friendship, to ask a name, to listen well to a story, to share my name and a bit of my story. I really believe that the way toward living harmoniously and forming a community of those born here in the United States and those born elsewhere, but recently arrived, is the way of kindness and friendship. So these two reminders, to see clearly the inherent humanity in the immigrant and to be kind and open to relationship, are the two most meaningful benefits to me of the border experience at Laredo.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Beautifully said. Matt, I have you on the screen next. Are you ready?
Yes.
Great. Go on ahead.
Yeah, I would say two things come to mind immediately. One would be the human connection, specifically with the youth. So in my professional job here in St. Louis, I work mainly, almost exclusively with young people. So I went there not being bilingual. This time around was my second time going to Laredo. But my first time there, you know, I definitely had some hesitancies and worries and anxieties about not being bilingual, and if I was going to be more of a detriment than a help or support. So you just kind of ask yourself when you're in that situation, well, what can I do? And I answered that with, well, I wanted to interact with the youth as much as I possibly could. The way I think about it is just try to get as many smiles as I possibly can in my time there. The journey, you know, it doesn't take much thought to think about the fear and uncertainty that would accompany such a journey to finally get to the border, and then to finally get to La Frontera, which is an absolutely just beautiful place to be and exist. And you can see it, the feeling of certainty and comfort, and finally a setting that is predictable, is very easy to see. And any way that I could have been a part of that system, of being a part of La Frontera, of adding to that predictability and the comfort and the, okay, I'm safe now, I can breathe, mentality, I would say that was by far the most meaningful part to me. And just knowing that I could have any impact whatsoever, specifically not being bilingual, and yeah, just racking up the smiles is the way I like to think of it. Yeah, I'm grateful for my chance to be at La Frontera.
I really like that, racking up the smiles. That is absolutely what I was trying to do as well. The more smiles that I could achieve, I came away happy. But hopefully other people did too. Sister Kathy Fisher, would you like to go next? Oh, you just need to unmute yourself.
Well, I was a little nervous going down for the first time. You know, like Matt said, I wasn't bilingual, and I didn't know what I could contribute, but I soon found out that just being down there and mingling with the people, not just the people in transition, but the other people that are committed to justice and committed to reinstating the dignity of these people in any way. And to go down there and just mingle with the people. I didn't speak Spanish or any other language, but we connected. A smile. We had our masks on, but there's an energy that goes out. Even there's body language, but there's also another language of intention that they know that you're there and you want to help them. And just to see the transformation that happens in people when they know they're in a safe place, and especially after they have had a meal, have rested, have taken a shower, the transformation that happens in the expressions of a mother, that they feel like they're safe with their children. So for me, it was just being amongst that and experiencing it, seeing it for myself. For me, just what a big difference just a little help and kindness can do. It doesn't take much. It just takes the desire, the intention, and there's many ways of showing it, even though you don't speak the language. It was transformational for me. So I feel very privileged to have been able to do something, some small thing. And I'm looking forward to continuing, because it's life-changing once you see that. And that's what was most meaningful to me.
You can't go back once you've seen it. Thank you, sister. Now let's hear from Kim Madden. Would you like to share?
Yes, thank you, Alyssa, thanks. And like Sister Kathy and Matt before me, I will admit to not being bilingual. I am practicing and working and learning Spanish, but poco a poco, as they say, little by little. I was, as Dan was as well, as a married couple, we had talked actually about being open to and called to making a trip to the border perhaps at some point. And little did we know that through Father Jack Schuler of St. Cronin Parish, where we are, he would have, heard from Marie that there was a last minute need for a couple more folks to make that third week trip. And we said yes, trusting. For me, it was probably a very big trust because of the limitations on my Spanish and not having made a trip to the border. But those people that I had met who were immigrants new to St. Louis, I had met through the Interfaith Committee on Latin America group here, companioning folks new to St. Louis, and I just instantly felt a companion, to them, with them, helping in every little way. And so I trusted humbly that I was called to make this trip, and found that it was very challenging, very humbling, very gratifying to put on that green vest that we were given as volunteers there, those green, beautiful green vests, and know that it was a way of saying, I'm here for you. I have a brother who works for the Archdiocese here, and he's worked for them in many, many capacities, including taking young people down to the border years ago, and other trips like that. And before I left, my brother said that he hoped for me that I would see and find the face of God in the people that I met there, and that they would see and find the face of God in me. As I was there sharing time and space and trying to be helpful. And I have to say I found that to be true, without being able to speak well, but attempting a little bit. like Sister Kathy and Matt said, your heart, I think, and a smile and good energy transcends language, the language that we know or don't know. And so I found the people to be very gracious, very humble, and very determined to continue their journeys. And I felt grateful to have been there to share some time with them.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Kim, thank you so much for sharing with us. Let's see, Dr. Van Kenyon, would you like to go next?
Sure. Everyone can hear me okay? Still good?
Yes.
Okay. So, in terms of most meaningful for me, I mean, I'm going to be echoing the sentiment that I feel a lot of people have already said about that idea of connection and idea of connection with people who are truly in just desperate need. And particularly in how I was able to kind of help a little bit. Again, I'm a physician, and we had a lot of people with health needs and health concerns that had developed because of transit and whatnot. And I was there to try to provide some health education, some basic screening, try to get set up with some type of primary care appointment there. And what I found from that experience was that it's not just the individuals, but really actually the families that I think that, and working with families, that impacted me the most. There's a certain narrative that a lot of the migrant population is like almost opportunistic in this, and it couldn't be any farther from the truth. You have people who are scared, families who are scared for their children, who are just trying to find a way to support them, and you could see that. And to be able to be there in whatever little way we all could, I think made a very big difference for me. And in particular, I think that's where, when we talk about connection, where that really kind of sets forth, is that this was in a large part an opportunity also to bear witness. So this is, obviously a major thing. It's in the news and whatnot. And we're not sitting on the sidelines. We're there. And in the trenches, trying to make a difference. And not only is that important, I feel like, for the volunteers that went down, but you could see that response with the migrants, with the families that we worked with. That's where the connection was, is that there was acknowledgement that you're the one who are there. You're the one who are seeing them, seeing that intrinsic humanity in them, and that deserves to be recognized. And I feel having an opportunity to participate in that dialogue was remarkably powerful for me.
Thank you, Dr. Kenyon. It was a blessing to have you down there and to have some medical expertise. I know that the shelter was very, very grateful for that. So I see in the chat, y'all are starting to write some questions. Please don't forget to write your questions. We only have, I think we have three more volunteers to talk about their experience, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So make sure to write your questions in the chat and we will get to those. Anything's on the table, feel free to ask us, whatever's on your mind. So now, next, let's move on to Daniel. Daniel, would you like to go next?
Yeah, of course.
Perfect.
So I'm someone who I think I try to stay informed about current events, which I usually do through, reading news articles, watching the news, or reading policy briefs and reports. And like several of the people have mentioned, immigration at the southern border has really been in the news, especially in recent years and also in the past few months. And while reading those kinds of sources can give someone a big picture view of large trends like where migrants are coming from or their motivations for coming here, in addition to the endless list of policy recommendations from all the authors who say that like their fix is going to really fix the issue. Those reports, I think, often come at the expense of abstracting the people who are really fleeing difficult situations, and it turns them into statistics, whether they're quantified as just a number of border crossings, a number of asylum applications, or a number of people who will be using social services in the United States. But I'm really grateful to have been able to spend time in Laredo, because it really put all of that previous knowledge in context. And I think my beliefs on everything going on with immigration at the southern border, those beliefs are a lot more grounded now in the experience of the people who I work with. To echo Dr. Kenyon, lots of the talk about immigration at the border, it treats it as far away. People see one picture of Haitian migrants huddled under a bridge in Del Rio. And it's easy to think of it as far away, even if, people think, oh, well, they're still in the same country. It's easy to think of it as far away, whether you're in Missouri or a journalist in New York City or a policy analyst in DC. But I think that, like Daniel Madden also said, it's important to think about how these are people who are fleeing extremely dangerous situations and need our help. And so not just focusing on the long-term big picture solutions, but they need medical care now, they need shoes, they need shoelaces, they need belts and things of that nature. So it was a very meaningful experience overall, and I'm really grateful to have had that opportunity.
We're so grateful that you went down. And we have to call out that Daniel wasn't there just for 1 week. Daniel was there for 2 weeks. And so we know made a huge impact. So has many stories to share. We have two more people to get through, and then we'd like to hear from Chris Valentick about from the legal point of view as a volunteer, and then we'll open it up for questions. So Sister Lucy Mason, would you like to go next? Sister Lucy, are you on with us?
I thank you for the opportunity, and I really love being at the border, and I can't tell you how many sheets I washed because of the machines that were there and the need. And I appreciate it, Bishop, reminding us that this was the first clean bed that many of those people had slept in for many nights, and so that makes me feel good. But I'd like for if you could turn this over to Sister Tony. I think she has some things to share, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Sister Tony, would you like to share with us, please?
Hello, all. It was, yes, a very deep experience for me too. We were lucky in the sense that there were 3 representatives from the Bishops' Conference, Catholic Bishops' Conference, that joined us and worked right beside us. But because of that, we had learning experiences, which helped me so much to understand what was going on at the border. And I think one of those experiences and a sleepless night after that was going to the detention center. And at the detention center, we looked into these 2 rooms. The men were separated from the women and children, and the faces of the women and children, and the fear and the uncertainty and the exhaustion I saw in their eyes really did keep me up all night thinking, why me? I'm not Native American. I was welcomed into this country. My family was welcome in this country. I am not a Native, and I can't imagine not welcoming someone else with open arms. And I think the complexity, I learned about the complexity. Becky was amazing in just spending time teaching us, and so that we could come back and bring those stories back, just made a big difference. And I think while we were there, the mayor of Laredo changed something that was working so well. The center was working so well. And the difficulties that happened because of some of the choices he made to transport some of the people coming to different parts of Texas was horrific. And it would not, talk to the bishop about, why he did it. I mean, we know he didn't want the immigrants there and there were too many, but this was working. This was so good. And people were being helped and they were being vaccinated and treated. And then he made it pretty impossible. So I came back thinking, one, how complex the situation is, and the prejudice and the chance to make a difference gets blocked and blocked and blocked. And the people on the staff there somehow work through those blocks and find ways to still help the people. And so, like so many said, I want to be a part of that for me, because it's continues to be life-changing for me. So I thank those who made the opportunity possible. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. And I know I was honored to have both you and Sister Lucy on my week. So was glad to be able to experience some difficult things in the presence of such warm and wonderful people. Now, we have one of our week leaders, Chris Valentick, who is also an attorney, so can lend a little bit of perspective from a legal point of view. Chris, would you like to share a little bit with us?
Sure. Thanks everyone for being here. So yeah, I had a little bit of a unique experience, just perspective, because I'm an immigration attorney and I work with this population every day. But it was nice to be able to step away from the legal focus of everything and kind of see where my clients, how they get into the United States, what they do once they get here before they get to me, before they are reunited with their families. So we got to see just the fact that getting them water, getting them clothes, just hanging out with them. We had kids that were so excited for grapes, and that just really made, just a difference, the human aspect of it. And just hearing some of their stories and what they'd been through. And the hard thing with all of this is listening to some of their stories, thinking about the legalese. I always have that in the back of my head. They have such good reasons for being here and for having to flee their home countries. But are they going to fit into the legal system, into our definition of who gets asylum, who gets status here in the country? A lot of them probably will not. But it was nice, I think, for me, just the benefit of reminding myself of the first step, and being a welcoming face at the beginning, and then being ready to be their attorneys when they get to St. Louis.
Thank you. And we appreciate everything that you do, the work that you do on a daily basis. So I see we have a question in the chat. What countries were the immigrants in Laredo from? There was a wide mix, but is any one of the volunteers, would you like to answer the question? Daniel.
Yeah, I'd love to. I would say the majority came from Honduras, Venezuela, and Nicaragua. The next biggest group was probably Mexico. And after that, it was just very small amounts of folks from Haiti or Brazil or other countries in Latin America.
Thank you. Then I also saw Stan, you had a question?
No,
okay?
somehow neither my hand went up. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
But congratulations to all of you who went. It sounds really life-changing. So thank you all.
Maybe you can be on the next trip, Stan. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
I would like to ask Daniel Chayette, being himself a member of an immigrant family legally in this country and being bilingual, his family's from Mexico, and he's so much connected to Mexico. What were his experiences when he confronted his own personal perspective, family perspective, and what he felt as he was there? Sorry, it's a bit tough, but want to hear.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Like you said, so both of my parents, they both grew up in Mexico City, and they came to the U.S. A few decades before I was born, and so it definitely, especially with the folks who crossed the bridge from Mexico, I definitely had a different cultural connection with them, whether talking about like sharing love of Mexican humor or foods or things like that. But like you said, it was definitely a really meaningful experience because oftentimes, even though both my parents being from Mexico has maybe affected like some of my experiences growing up, it usually wasn't something that I thought about, but this really reminded me and forced me to think about how difficult it can be, even as America is often considered, a melting pot, and how the Statue of Liberty welcomes the huddled masses yearning to be free in New York. How difficult it is, especially from people who are fleeing these adverse situations, to come to this country to get let in, then of course to get integrated.
Well, congratulations for such a tremendous humanistic activity to all of you.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing that, Daniel. Really appreciate that perspective. So unfortunately, we are going to have to move on. I do encourage you all, I'll put my email in the chat. If you want to reach out and talk about any of the specific experiences, I'm sure that I or anyone else would be happy to have that conversation, maybe go out for coffee on a patio somewhere. So now I'd like to turn it over to Becky, the Executive Director of La Frontera Catholic Charity Shelter, to give us just a little bit of an update on what is going on currently at the shelter and in Laredo.
Good evening, all. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you're fine.
Can you hear me? Okay, great, thank you. So definitely want to just throw a big old shout out to all of you and thanking you for being there for the 4 weeks that the volunteers were there. We definitely couldn't have done it without you. I want to thank Sister Maureen for just taking the initiative the first time she saw us there and said, I've got to do something, because I think we startled her a little bit because it was quite busy. So as a result, we've been able to meet some great people, great sisters that have been helping us throughout these months. We look forward to seeing a few of you in November. For October, we have no volunteers, so just keep that in mind. So this is our 8th month since we opened we've activated the humanitarian shelter, and about 15,000 people have passed through the shelter. Last week, we did have a huge wave of Haitians, but that has pretty much subsided this week, where the majority of the individuals are from Nicaragua, Venezuela, Ecuador, and Guatemala. As Sister Tony mentioned, there was a change, and that change has stayed, where Border Patrol is not dropping off any families to our shelter. We do receive families either through the bridge or because they have been in the hospital for some reason or another, and then they're releasing them to us or to the Holding Institute. But primarily, we are the drop-off shelter for ICE, and these are for individuals that have been detained at least a month or a week, from a week to about 2 or 3 months. They're all adults at this time. But still needing the same, they still all have the same needs: communication, change of clothes, food, and so forth. So we've been assisting them. We're probably getting about 50 to 75 a day. Sometimes we get 25, and then it just goes up throughout the week. So we're still pretty busy. It's been very manageable, but pretty busy. And we've had, for the last 4 Sundays, been able to take a Sunday off. So we've been really grateful for that. The shelter continues to be a center where We don't have any COVID. Everybody that goes through our shelters tests negative. So that has also been that's also been a blessing for us because we're not getting ill. As some of you may know, we are one of the smallest shelters along the border, and we're the shelter that receives the overflows from the Rio Grande area and from the Del Rio Eagle Pass area. So that's why we keep busy in Laredo. Laredo is not a point of entry or a large point of entry where migrants come through. But what's keeping us busy is all the overflows from the different cities. So we're like right in the middle of a bookend, if you will. But that's what's happening, currently in Laredo, and but we are staying busy, and we know that in the near future it may still get busier yet, as different laws, executive orders are either changed or lifted. But again, thank you. Just big hug and kiss to all of y'all for just hanging in there with us and just helping us out when we really, really needed it.
Thank you, Becky. It was really, it was an honor to work with you and everyone at the shelter. And we're in awe of how strong you all are to keep going in the face of changing legislation and efforts and waves of people coming in. So thank you for all that you do. So we just have 2 more pieces of this program, and that's what can we do here in St. Louis, and then a closing prayer. So we know that it's 8 o'clock, but if you're able to stay with us to learn a little bit about what you can do, and then wrap it up with us, we would love for you to stay on. So I'm going to pass it over now to Meredith Rata, who's going to talk with us a little bit about what's happening here in St. Louis.
Hi, everyone. As Alyssa said, I'm Meredith Rata, and I'm with St. Francis Community Services, and we are a local agency, and we are tasked with serving the immigrant community here in St. Louis. We work predominantly with Vietnamese-speaking and Spanish-speaking immigrants, providing all sorts of services. I wanted to say thank you so much to Bishop Tamayo, to Becky for Laredo, just opening your arms to St. Louis and welcoming us. And I wanted to then extend the welcome back, right? Like, I think some of you mentioned that people coming across the border don't just stay there, right? Like they're going all throughout the country. And one of the places they're coming is St. Louis. And we have seen a huge uptick in arriving families. Now St. Francis is used to having people come and be new, but we're not used to having quite so many people come at a time. And so we have launched a program that's over and above our normal programming that's called the Abriando Puertas initiative. And I'm going to link that right now in the chat. We've been able to meet the needs of about 27 recently arrived families. And I wanted to say a big shout out to so many of the faces on here who came back from Laredo and plugged right into what was happening in St. Louis, because they said, hey, I know that what I did doesn't just stop after my week of service, right? And so thank you so much to all the people that have helped deliver beds, get donations for us. We have been able to, like I said, meet the basic needs of about 27 families. And while we were doing that, we had at least 10 more families get on our wait list for that program. And so we are hoping that you all will help spread the word. We need all those necessities that you'll see on that link to help people get settled, right? There are new neighbors and we want to welcome them. I also wanted to mention, and I'm gonna see if I can drop another link. Matt and I were talking tonight about how, we can't just go to Laredo, put in a week of service and then pat ourselves on the back and be like, we're done, we did it, we can feel good, right? Like we don't have to do anything more. But then how do we make a difference? And so the Abriando Puertas is a way that you can be involved in direct service, but there's other ways that you can also be involved and make a difference. So the St. Louis Interfaith Committee on Latin America, they also sent some of their staff, and they are an amazing organization right in St. Louis that have other opportunities. One opportunity is an accompaniment program I know the madams talked about that. You can be trained in how to basically accompany people to all sorts of different opportunities within St. Louis. And also what IFCLA does really well is alert us to all sorts of policies that are impacting immigrants at the border, impacting immigrants here in St. Louis, and they can help you understand when it's time to mobilize. So I really encourage you to go to their website, and if you're not already on their listserv, to get on that, because that will give you some great opportunities to let our policymakers know how what they're doing impacts real lives, the lives of the people that were touched by the people that are on this call tonight. So, if you would like to be involved, please let me know, reach out. Our contact information is on the Abriando Puertas website. If you are like, hey, I have a truck and I can every once in a while deliver a bed, or that kind of a thing, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you, Meredith. Absolutely. I think that everything you're doing at St. Francis with Abriando Puertas is incredible. And then I second everything that IFCLA is doing. It's just a fantastic organization that is in the midst of some growth too. So we'll hopefully see some additional opportunities coming down as they continue to grow. So again, thank you all so much for joining us. I'd like to close this evening with, again, bringing back Bishop Tomeo, who stayed with us the entire program, to do a closing prayer for us.
Thank you, Allison, and thank you again to everyone. It has truly been a joy for us to see you again and to know that our hearts are united and we together share in that love that God has for every one of his children. I want to leave you with 3 words in Spanish that we look at every day as part of this ministry. Ver, and I spoke of that when I used the word see. Juzgar, judge. Judge according to God's laws. Judge according to finding the truth in every situation. Actuar, act. You have spoken of the actions you have given to our migrant brothers and sisters and what you're following and ready to do again in St. Louis for those that reside in your midst. Ver, juzgar, actuar. Oh, Heavenly Father, help us to open our eyes to see. Help us to open our hearts to know your love, and help us to act in such a way that we share your love with those around us. You, our Heavenly Father, are everywhere. And when we give to the homeless or to a beggar, when we comfort the sick, when you help a child, a parent, a stranger, a migrant, a neighbor in need, and you open your heart and you open your eyes and look into his or her eyes, may you see the face of God staring back at you with love as you share your love with others. His peace and his grace abound in your hearts. Amen. Thank you.
Amen. So thank you all again so much for joining us. This really was an honor. I put my email in the chat. Please feel free to reach out anytime, as I'm sure that so many of the other volunteers and Marie would be willing to chat as well. Bishop Tomeo, thank you so much for being with us tonight, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us.
You're so glad to be with each of you. Un gran abrazo from all of us here. Thank you again publicly to Becky and her team that continue to do all the great work you help us to perform. Thank you, Becky, and all our staff. Bless you all.
Thank you all. Becky, also, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you and all your work for sending strength from St. Louis. With that, we hope you all have a really wonderful evening, and I hope to talk soon.
Thanks,
Bless you
Alyssa.
all.
You did a great job.
Thank you, sister.